Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! A little backstory to get started here. I own numerous collector cars and tend to drive them almost every day, weather permitting. The car I was driving today was my JZX 100 Chaser, which I imported from Japan and have heavily modified into a drift car. For more context, I am one of the long COVID sufferers, and this means that for the past year since having the virus, I still get heavily fatigued, shortness of breath, and a slew of other symptoms. This has granted me a 2-year handicap parking permit. On my way home, my wife called asking if I minded picking up a few things for dinner, but of course I had no problems doing so. I stopped into a shopping center not far from my home and saw 2 handicap parking spaces next to each other. I backed into the one further from the store. I went in, collected the groceries that were asked for while using a cane. Upon exiting the store, I noticed a police car parked in the lane directly in front of my car, with my permit hanging in my window, and our entitled person talking with the officer. Upon exiting the store, I noticed a police car parked in a lane directly in front of my car, with my permit hanging in my window and our entitled person talking with the officer. With my cane hanging on a push handle of the cart, I approached, leaning my body weight onto said cart. I asked, "Is everything okay? Who do you think you are parking in the handicapped spot?" The entitled lady asked angrily. I then held up my cane. "No handicapped person would drive this car. You're faking it, and probably made that placard at home." The officer finally butted in. "Ma'am, the placard and tag on a vehicle come back to the same name. Sir, may I see your driver's license?" "No problem," I said, then showed him my license. "Sorry for bothering you. Have a nice afternoon," the officer said before he tried leaving. "What? You can't just let him go. This piece of junk," yes, she called my baby a piece of junk, "needs to be towed right now." "Ma'am, even if this gentleman didn't have the right to park there, we would just ticket the car, not tow it." "I demand to speak to your sergeant." "Sergeant?" She actually hung on syllables while repeating herself. "No, ma'am, there is no reason for me to call my sergeant out here. Please continue on with your shopping." The officer bid us both a good day as Karen scuffed and shuffled off. The officer and I exchanged an awkward "what was wrong with her" type of laugh as he shrugged and got back into his car. As the officer was pulling away, I started to put the groceries into the backseat of my car. Note that the car actually has a hood on it, and the hood was a custom order from C1 Carbon, including custom drilling for the hood exit exhaust, which cost $3,200. As I was finishing putting groceries into my car, I heard a loud repetitive banging noise. As I looked up, I saw the same entitled Karen, now with a hammer, banging on the hood of my car, knocking out one of my headlights and dinging up the front bumper. Before I could even shove her away from the car, she managed to completely crack the hood, causing it to splinter from end to end. I shoved her so hard that she hit the ground on her back and rolled over onto her elbows to be facing stomach down. Karen stood up screaming absolute murder. A co-worker as well as 2 customers of the store happened to witness everything and came running to restrain her. After realizing she couldn't attack me with a hammer, she called the police again. I couldn't hear much of the phone call, but I will not lie, I was a bit worried about a possible assault charge. Less than 5 minutes later, the same officer arrived, as well as 2 additional units. The officer ordered me into a pat down, and I complied, extremely nervous. He handcuffed me all the while Karen was screaming about me assaulting her. The officer noticed the damage on the front of my car and asked what happened. I explained that this absolute lunatic had just attacked it with a hammer, unprovoked, moments after he left. Karen denied this entirely, stating that she only hit the hood of the car once because she missed hitting me. Luckily, I remembered that I have some really fancy cameras on this car from Blackview, which includes a dash cam that captures video anytime there is motion. I explained this to the officer and that I could pull it up on my phone. The officer uncuffed me while Karen was screaming to take me to jail, clearly realizing that she was in deep trouble. Not only did this amazing camera catch everything in 1080p, but it also recorded all the sound, including my shocked reaction when I realized what was happening. It showed me pushing this large woman across the parking lot as she drew back to swing the hammer at me. I didn't notice this at the time. Karen was immediately handcuffed while resisting and even spat on one of the other officers. Obviously, I said I wanted to press charges. Karen is facing 4 charges: felony destruction of property, felony assault, assault on an officer, and resisting arrest. Luckily, the officer allowed me to drive the car home, roughly 2 miles, while he followed me. It is now sitting in my garage, and I'm writing this as I sit on hold with my insurance agent. I plan to file a civil suit against this Karen as well. This happened back in 2013. The nursing council in my country organizes an annual 3-day convention in order to keep us updated on new developments in our profession. It's not mandatory, but it gathers a lot of people for 2 reasons. 1, you can present a paper or research you worked on and be considered published. And 2, because they do it in a different city every year, it's a good way for a vacation. It usually takes place around the middle of May. Important information, well, tourist season in my country begins in April. For about 2 years, the nurses in a company I worked for had combined forces to write a paper about training and educating patients. I was the unlucky one who had to do the presentation. We applied and they gave us a spot early on the first day. The convention was held in a very touristy city in a 5-star hotel. I was staying in another cheaper, like €100 per night cheaper hotel, and I went in wearing my dark blue business suit and tie and carrying my laptop. I did the presentation, everything went well, and afterward, I found a classmate of mine from nursing school and decided to grab a coffee. Because she wanted to catch a presentation later on, we decided not to leave the hotel and to go to the patio where they had a cafe. We were on a patio catching up, enjoying our coffee and the sun, and generally having a good time. The patio was almost full at that moment, mostly with students, nurses, and people from the convention. The cafe staff was busy with all the people there, and at some point my friend excused herself to visit the bathroom, and I checked my phone. Suddenly I felt someone looming over me. Then I heard a high-pitched, "Excuse me." So I turned my head to see a slightly annoyed woman staring daggers at me. She looked like a prototypical Karen. The haircut, the expensive clothes that looked cheap, and the attitude. She says to me, "Me and my friends have been waiting for someone to take our order for 5 minutes." She pointed a couple of tables over where a few women in the same subcategory were sitting. "So?" I asked, confused. "So get off your break and come take our order." "But I don't think so. You have to wait for one of the servers. I don't work for the cafe." But Karen, leaning towards and getting in my face now, says, "Listen up, you peon. We are paying customers, and you're going to do as you're told. Break is over." And with that, she swept her arms on a table, spilling the coffees and glasses of water on me, but mostly on a laptop I had next to the table. At that point, I was furious. I got up, and there was a noticeable size difference. I'm 6 foot 4 inches, 225 pounds, and she was maybe 5'6" on 3-inch heels. I say, "Listen up, you little witch. I don't work here, and even if I did, I wouldn't serve people with your attitude. If something happened to the laptop, you're paying for it." "You dare threaten me? Me? Do you know who I am?" "No, and I don't care. You're just an entitled witch." At that point, a lot of people were looking at us, and a server was coming over. The servers were dressed in black pants, white shirts, and black aprons. And Karen decided to slap or tried to slap me. I caught her hand as the server came next to us. He says, "What is happening here?" "Your colleague is refusing to take our order and is threatening me." The server, taking a look at me, "Ma'am, this man doesn't work here. He's a customer." Apparently, her little brain couldn't compute because she continued filming until a manager and security appeared. When the manager asked what happened, I replied, "This woman insulted me, deliberately dropped coffee on me and my personal belongings, and tried to attack me. I would like to press charges." The implication of getting the police involved led to another rant by Karen. How it was discriminating against foreign tourists, and how she would sue me and the hotel, and how we should respect our betters. You know, lovely stuff. The aftermath was that I pressed charges, and Karen was kicked out of the hotel. I don't know what happened to the rest of her clique. The laptop was ruined, the bag zipper was slightly open, and all the coffee poured directly on my laptop. The hotel offered me a full paid weekend reservation at the time of my choosing. About a year later, I received a hefty settlement for the incident, about 3,500 euros. Before we begin, dear readers, a brief bit of backstory. I have found that every company has a Todd. You'll know who your Todd is because he is who you call when you don't know who to call. When the unthinkable happens and everything is on fire and there is no hope of salvation, Todd steps in to fix it. Todd spends his entire time just fixing the unfixable. He has been with the company since the dawn of time, knows the true names of several demons, and was in a room when the old magic was written. Our Todd has an elite team to be on call when stuff breaks. Each team member is the highest authority in the company for one specific thing or another. They are the elite. Their word is law, and to question them is to question Todd. Our story begins shortly after I had accomplished my greatest goal and became the newest member of Todd's team. My company works with point-of-sale systems. We sell computers, software, printers, card readers, and pretty much anything you need to take money from someone else. After years of working in a call center, I proved myself worthy of Todd's attention. I interviewed, tested, and became the specialist of third-party integration. My focus is the connection between our product and whatever weird stuff your company wants to use. Examples of this include getting smart lights to change on commands from ordering kiosks, letting the staff control the new jukebox you bought with your employee ID card, or getting the sales data for the day to report to your Canadian counterparts in both French and English, but only if someone buys a poutine Sarah's surprise that day, and other fun conundrums that only the client can fathom. It's important to note that during my time in a call center, I was paid hourly. As a specialist, I will be made a salaried employee and will be on call. After accepting the position, I was told that I would have a trial period of 1 month to prove myself. I would remain hourly, but would have a pay increase to more closely match my expected rate as a salaried employee. I would have the title change and new responsibilities of my job, but I had this month to prove I was worth the extra money. On the first day of my new job, we got a call from one of our more needy clients. They laid out a series of demands. All their stores must be upgraded to Windows 10, as each store makes about $10,000 a day. Taking them down for a remodel is not acceptable. All of these upgrades must be done overnight while the store is closed. If the upgrade fails, the store must be rolled back that night so they can open on time. The window of time to do one of these upgrades is 8 hours. The fastest they have been able to do one is 10 hours. All this meant one thing. They needed a specialist to do the upgrades, one that knows their integration. I gave Todd the put-me-in coach nod and a deal was struck. Todd was about to leave on vacation, which left me under the control of Steve, the director of the support center who used to be my boss before I worked for Todd. I was now on overnights, 4 nights a week. I upgraded these stores. I supervised 2 to 3 technicians who were on site in separate stores. I did all the software. They did the hardware. This process was staggered based on time zones, so I generally was pulling 12-hour shifts. The overtime was amazing, especially paired with the raise I got. Fast forward a week or two, the initial batch did not go the best, and I had a 40% failure rate. This was due to scripts provided to both the client and me by the various third-party companies used by the stores, including their music, food delivery, and credit card processors. Everyone on their side knew who the bad guy was here. Talks were in place and we were moving forward. A meeting between the client and us was scheduled near the end of the week, right in the middle of my off time. As I said, I was working 12 hours a day. I lived a full hour from work, and for security reasons, couldn't do these upgrades outside the office. I had 10 hours to eat, sleep, get up, and eat again before work. Once I got to work, there were no breaks on the upgrade train. No lunch, no stopping. So I got home around 11 a.m. each day. The meeting was set for 4 p.m. I couldn't get any reasonable sleep before the meeting or after. Steve demanded that I be there to account for my failures. I already had another specialist designated as my proxy for these sorts of meetings because sleep is a thing. I also explained that I was still hourly, but he wouldn't hear it. He insisted that I needed to be there to explain why the project was going so poorly and that my explanation better not just be throwing other people under the bus. He tried to explain that I was salaried and therefore needed to be there when the company needed me, especially when I was the one who was screwing up. Again, I tried to remind him of my probationary period, but he wouldn't listen. And there, my friends, begins the malicious compliance. I clocked in at 10 p.m. the day before the meeting. I did my upgrades, all 3 of which were successes due to what I assumed was a change in the third-party backend. The scripts I was provided with worked perfectly this time, and all went well. The corporate contact I reported to in the morning told me the meeting was just to go over the new changes to procedure we went through that night, and I will get the summary in my email. No need to attend the meeting. I thanked him and signed out. Then I sat. For 6 hours I twiddled my thumbs, took a lunch break and a car nap, and waited for the meeting. When it was time, I walked upstairs to the top floor and the conference room. Where everyone but Steve was shocked to see me. I calmly took my place and waited for the meeting to start, stating that I was asked to be there. The meeting lasted 30 minutes and consisted of the new procedure, praise for my diligence, and a quick overview of how the timetable would change because of the past failures. It was noted that my performance had prevented a lot of the sites from failing when they would have otherwise, and the client was pleased with my work. Steve, who had previously blamed me for the failures, sheepishly agreed that I was a good fit for the project. Then the meeting ended with the best part. The person giving the talk stated that she knew I was asleep right now, so she would go over the changes with me personally when I got in that night. Meanwhile, the guy I asked to sit in on the meeting for me would work with him to set up the changes to be deployed. About 3 hours of work, so that it was all ready when I got in at 10. The meeting ended. Steve made a comment about the changes being done by someone with more experience and hinted that it should be my responsibility. I cheerfully said that rather than waste my co-workers' time, I would just do the changes myself. I had my 3rd or 4th wine by now and was ready to go. At the end of day 2, I had spent 36 hours at work. Caffeine was my only salvation and we were almost done. Near the end, I was basically waiting for a technician at my last store to finish testing, so I told him to call me and shut my eyes for about a half an hour, just to rest a bit. All was well, I got cold, everything was green. The vigil was over. 2 of my friends insisted on driving me home, where I promptly passed out into the most heavenly sleep I had had in ages. I woke up to an email asking me to head into work for a meeting with HR. It was my day off, so I was kinda perplexed. I headed in and apologized for being fashionably late. The meeting was with the head of HR, who had a report that I was sleeping on a job. There was camera footage of my 30-minute power nap. I calmly explained that Steve had asked me to show up to the meeting and then asked me to stay later to set up the changes. And by the time I took my nap during what I call my paid 30-minute break, I had been in the building for 35 hours. I politely reminded the HR head that I was on my trial period. I would be expecting overtime pay for that time. It came out to about 33 hours and change due to my extended lunch break. Todd returned from his vacation and taught Steve a new definition of duties. From then on, he would not be given control over Todd's team when he was away, and we would report directly to the CEO. The project completed without much incident, and I passed my probation with flying colors. Edit. A bit more info since people are asking. Steve would later be fired several months later due to a similar situation where he threw someone so hard under the bus that everyone stopped and saw how uncool that was. He was replaced with Steve, who is a superior Steve in every way. Backstory. So I work at a certain medium theme park. Let's call it Chavland. I'm a supervisor, covering a good workmate's little hot dog hut near the entrance. So I was on my break one morning and Chavland had just hit full summer season, so the park was pretty busy. I was eating my lunch like the unhealthy Brit I am when I got a call through on my radio. Radio goes off, I hear someone say, "Come in." "Who is this?" "It's me, X, your friend. I've hurt my leg, and the medics have told me to rest up. Staff have living quarters on site for full time. I just need your permission and to find someone to cover me." "It's alright. Go take a few hours and radio me back when you're feeling better, bud. And don't worry, I have a few hours to spare. I'll cover till I need to go do other stuff." "Thank you. You're the best. I'll buy you lunch tomorrow." So I put my radio back on my belt and trashed my food to go to the hot dog hut. I arrived, unlocked all the windows and started serving customers again. I checked some stock and realized we were out of ketchup. Not usually a problem. I call in storage, and when they do their next delivery, it will come. No problem. Or so I thought. So here comes the entitled kid. He waddled up to me, just finishing an ice cream and holding a 20 pounds in his sticky hand. I rolled my eyes, but hey, he was about 10. Kids will be kids, and they can be messy. It's Chavland after all. So here is how the conversation goes. "I want a hot dog jumbo, now." I sighed and turned to go make this kid's food. "Hurry up, I'm hungry." "Patience, young one, and the food will be delivered," I said in a joking tone. It's a theme park and we are told to make jokes and so on. "I'm not a darn child, just give me my food." I muttered to myself, "If you don't shut up, I'll turn you into a hot dog." So I finally got done microwaving the hot dogs and shoveling them in a bun. We served them plain, no cheese, onions, or anything else. I handed him the hot dog and he gave me the money, but just stood there and stared at me. "Where's the ketchup? You forgot it." He didn't ask. "You're unlucky though. We have run out of it, but I have mustard." "No, I want ketchup now." "Well, sorry. No can do, kiddo. We won't get some till later, and I can't leave. But there's some just down the path to the other hot dog hut." For some reason, the kid just started crying. I was shocked as I hadn't done anything wrong, and he just ran off. I didn't think anything of it till I saw a figure come running at the hut. I went to close the window as it might be someone trying to grab the till, as that's happened to me before, but no, it was a kid's dad. He grabbed the window and said, "You made my kid cry. You're gonna pay for this, jerk." I was so confused and shocked. "What are you talking about?" The dad proceeded to jump through the window and grabbed my knife. I instantly hit my panic button on the wall and radioed as the dad approached me, holding the knife to nearly my neck at this point. "Give my son ketchup right now." "Put down the knife. There is no ketchup left." "I'm sorry, but I told him that." "I don't care. That's your issue. I want some ketchup for my kid." I slowly started to back off and said I'd check the back and see if there was any as long as he stayed there. As I went to the back, I heard a voice through the door whimpering to me. "Are you there? You didn't answer your radio when we called in about the panic button." "Ah yeah, there's a dude with a knife threatening to stab me over ketchup." Next thing I know, the security guys came barging through the door with their pepper spray and just sprayed it at the dad. Then wrestled him to the floor and got him in cuffs before the police arrived on the scene. The dad was arrested for assault and plotting to murder, which apparently he admitted to the cops that he was going to stab me in the throat even if I managed to find some ketchup. I got the rest of the day off and went to check on my friend to make sure she was alright. She told me she heard everything over the radio, but all I could do was sit there and just flop into my bed, knowing that even working at Chavland could get me killed over some stupid ketchup. I used to work at a nightclub for many years as a side gig. This club had a lot of pretty diverse events, but every Saturday night was one of the biggest parties in the city, so it brought out the basics in droves. Just your regular young city dwellers or bridge hoppers flock in to get their groove on. This place would get packed, like squeezing through a sardine can packed. So packed that often people couldn't even dance. They just stood smashed up against each other, sort of wiggling a bit, at least back in its heyday. This was not my type of event. I super hate strangers touching me. One of my jobs was to tend to the bathrooms, which surely means in a past life I was likely a murderer given how disgusting that chore was on busy Saturday nights. Honestly, that part of the job alone I have several tales of woe from. There were more than a few bathrooms, and one was a single stall on a top floor. This one always had a line and had the most issues, as people liked its privacy to do all sorts of things you can imagine people doing during a raging party. I've seen some things. Anyway, I marched my merry self up the stairs, fighting the crowd back as best as I could to refresh the tiny loo, and as usual, there was quite a line. Now, I'm not only in uniform, with a radio hanging off my back, cleaning towels and so on, but my arms were full of toilet paper. I tried to communicate to the line, as best as I could, over blaring music and endless screaming that I needed to go next, so they'd have the ability to wipe if needed. Even though the line was filled with wobbly club-goers pretty desperate to use a toilet, they seemed to understand. Except for this one chick. She was very basic, like you'd hire her to stand in as an extra in a Gap commercial. She was young, blonde, and otherwise forgettable, though attractive for sure. She wasn't even dressed up for dancing, just like she walked out to a mall on an average day. Immediately she was irate and started yelling that I couldn't cut the line. This was many years ago, so I don't remember all the vitriol she spewed, but I would never guess this basic little lady would have a mouth worse than a sailor. While I was trying to assure her drunk self that I'd just be 2 seconds, all I had to do was put down the toilet paper and wipe a surface, unless someone was actually did there, and she wasn't even next in line. Then the door opened. I immediately rushed in and the lady tried to follow me into the single-stall bathroom. Excuse me? She was losing her mind and I was scared, so I quickly started shutting the door, careful not to close her in it at the same time. And I locked it. I radioed security for help and waited. I'm a coward, so I waited until security gave the all clear to leave. I didn't think anything more about it because clubs are crazy and things just happen on a regular. Later I was outside on a break when, who do I see? Little Miss Basic in handcuffs. She'd been set down on a curb by the police, and I was asked to give my statement of what led up to this 5'5" woman assaulting security. Her friends, a guy and another lady, were standing over her yelling, "Get her out of handcuffs." She didn't do anything. They weren't around for the incident, at least not that I saw. And she was crying, saying, "I didn't hit anyone." Sure, Jan. Once I filled out the statement, security told me what she did to them. Once they arrived upstairs at her freaking out on a bathroom door, they tried to calm her down. These guys were huge but have a lot of control. And this wasn't the kind of club where people got roughed up by staff, though sometimes that would have been nice. Instead of calming down and listening to reason, she went feral and started hitting them on their heads mostly, going for their faces, even leaving a huge scratch near the head of security's eye. She must have been climbing up the 6-foot-plus guy to injure him in that way. I never saw that guy actually injured by anyone my entire time working there. It took everything in me not to die laughing when they hauled the little lady off for assaulting 2 people. I'm also really glad I got her out of the bathroom before she got to me too. So I took my mom to get some groceries and stuff at Mr. Walton's department store. This just happened yesterday, Saturday. Being really nice out, I was wearing an old and faded black t-shirt with denim coveralls that I cut the legs off for summer. Mom is in her 80s and has a rollator walker, so I push her cart and she walks beside me. I try to do the food items last so the cold stuff stays cold, but Mom insisted on starting on that side. Okay, I gave in and off we went. After the groceries were in the cart, Mom headed us over to electronics because I was telling her that hubby and I were debating buying all the Avengers movies versus getting a streaming service. Mom wanted to see the cost of the DVDs. This is where we met Karen and her child. I was explaining DVD versus Blu-ray to Mom when Karen walked up and told me she needed my help next. Mom was sitting on her walker while we were talking. I politely told her that I didn't work there. I was a customer, and then I pointed at an employee in a blue vest. "Oh no, you're obviously helping this old lady to buy a DVD player. I'm just telling you I am next." "Sorry, but I really don't work here. I'm shopping with my mom." "Listen here, Missy, I know you work here. Now, as soon as you're done with this old lady, I am next." One thing I forgot to mention, I have blue hair right now and had my hair up into ponytails. I know I don't look like a kid, but I definitely don't look 50 either. I hate being called Missy, especially when the person is younger than me. If any of you have read other shopping trips I've posted, you know my mom is a very feisty Italian. Mom says, "Listen lady, open your ears. My daughter doesn't work here. Look how she's dressed." "Ma'am, please, I'm just asking this girl to go serve me next." The child says, "Mom, she really doesn't work here. Look at her clothes and hair." "Just be quiet. You wanted a switch? We're gonna get you a switch. If this girl doesn't show more respect, I'll make sure we get a discount." But this time my mom was done. In Italian, she started cursing this woman out. My mom doesn't like being the center of attention, but man, if you annoy her, just duck and run. Sales staff finally made it over to us since Mom was getting louder the longer you let her go. Karen saw the employees and started in on how rude I was and what a horrid employee I was and how I needed to be disciplined for my attitude towards her. The employee looked at me, my mother and Karen, and politely in Italian asked Mom what happened. Mom calmly explained and referred to Karen with an Italian insult. I was dying trying not to laugh. Karen had her say and finally it was my turn. And I turned to Karen. "Look, I don't know who your parents are, but sweetie, I could be your mother. You teaching your child to act like this is unacceptable. Especially right now with a pandemic and places going out of business. I'm pretty sure you knew all along that I don't work here and we're hoping to cause enough of a scene to get the acting manager to give you a massive discount. I'm here to tell you that this isn't happening today. Not here, not in this store. You think that just because I'm dressed in old frayed clothes you can pull a stunt like this? And tell the staff that I accosted you and caused all the drama? Guess again, child. On top of your bad behavior towards me, you have caused my mother to get upset. I am so tempted right now to call the cops and have you charged with harassment and elder abuse." Karen left and Mom and I finished shopping, and we left afterwards. In the car, Mom said, "I guess you're a little stressed today, huh?" That was the understatement of the year.